Hey guys, how's everything going?
Great. It's a beautiful rainy day.
Awesome. Brad, you going to survive this hour or whatever?
I think so. I'm a little under the weather today, but it's fall. I can handle it.
Well, guys, I want to talk today about something that we all struggle with, and I know other agencies struggle with. And when I say struggle, I mean legitimately, and that is how to get new business, getting new business. The reality of an agency owner is keeping enough business in the pipeline to keep your overhead, first of all, to keep your team busy, and ultimately to be profitable. Because as we know, being a service agency, you never know when something's going to roll off or there's limited engagements. We don't have, some of us don't have widgets or products necessarily that we rely on a majority of our income. And so new business is something that's constant. So for those of us who have used, salespeople, development directors, whatever you want to call them, that's certainly one way to do it. Go out and knock on the doors and build relationships. But what I want to talk about on this podcast is what are some other things that, first of all, you guys struggle with, but also what are the tools, what are the methods, and maybe by the end of this we can have some good content that we can walk away and hopefully people will have a little bit better idea how to fill that pipeline a little more. So, Ken, I'd love to hear from you. What's your struggles, first of all, with getting new business?
I think new business is really hard. It always has been, probably always will be. I feel like everyone, you look at other people and other companies and you think, oh, maybe they have it figured out. And a lot of people act like they have it figured out. Some people do have it, I think the amount of businesses that have more new business than they can handle is a lot lower than people think, I would guess.
Yeah.
And so my bet, and when I talk to a lot of business owners and agency owners or other or in other areas, new business is really hard. Getting the right quality new business, it's not necessarily about tons and tons of leads with low quality. Any of us can get that. And so we've tried a lot of things, and we can dig into the things that we've tried at Medicake, and we're constantly testing and trying things. But I do believe at the end of the day, what it comes down to is building some sort of relationship at scale with people. And that relationship, in my mind, needs to be in a relationship where there's an expertise associated with you as the business, as the agency, and so you have a certain authority in the mind of people in a certain area. And the more you can do that at scale, I think that's sort of probably at the core of generating new business. Now, doing that is not necessarily easy, and it's not fast either.
But that's a good point. Brad, what about you? What's your struggles?
I think the struggle is trying to communicate to potential clients exactly what would benefit them. I feel sometimes that we're a commodity business at some level, which I always try to fight against. But I think for us, we do so much broad type of projects, so every client has different challenges, and so we're constantly doing things that are still within our wheelhouse, but they're unique to every client. So we're not a pure play agency, and I think sometimes that's our challenge. Is a lot of clients are looking for specific agencies that they're just pure play and they're super niched and they're super niched within their own industry, and so I find sometimes that's a challenge. Also, I think that for our agency, we don't produce a small a product that a client can quickly jump on board with at a cheap price that they can try out very easily. We're agency of record for some of our clients, and so when they make a commitment to us, it's a much bigger commitment to them, where we're signing year-long contracts a lot of times, and so it's a longer sales process. for us, and so our clients that we would go after are a little bit more far and few between than just your average bakery next door or some small business next door.
Sure.
So,
yeah. I think the magic and the curse of the service industry is everyone's always going to need it on some level, but historically the cycles are every service that comes out that people pay a high dollar for, most of the time, over years, that price goes down because technology increases, other people learn how to do it. Nobody, as you've said, Ken, on our podcast before, there's only, 3 ways to make yourself invaluable, right? You can be the best at it, you can be the cheapest at it, or you can be the only person who does it. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to stay in that lane long term. You can't,
Right.
Someone's always going to come up and be better at some point, right?
Totally.
You don't want to play in the cheapest game, or maybe you do, but that's one way to do it. So as you said, Brad, I think, a lot of companies niche down, they're pure play, but for those of us who aren't or can't afford to do that or choose not to do that, then it leaves us with this option where we don't really fit in any one of those necessarily. But I think we always strive to be the best at what we're doing. So that's the struggle, and we're not going to leave with that negative because there's obviously a lot of success sitting at this table and getting new clients. So let's talk about, high level, and let's drill down. Ken, from a high level, how have you gotten new clients? What is the best way, hands down? You don't have to get into the weeds yet, but what's the best way?
We have 3 main areas or channels that drive new business, and I think this is probably the case for most people. And trying to diversify across them. One is cold, so completely cold leads coming in, or leads generated through any outbound efforts. And we don't do a ton of outbound, but we do a lot of inbound efforts. So we can talk about that another time or later. The second one is through partners, and so we have a legitimate partner network of businesses that we work closely with, that we collaborate with. Some of them may be, and I've talked about this before, some of them may be considered competitors to ours, but when you actually get into it, they're really not competitors when you think of what their greatest strength is and what your greatest strength is. And so we have this kind of network of companies that talk to the same type of clients that we talk to and that we can provide value to, and we develop relationships with them, and we pass business back and forth. So that's the second one. And then the last one is referral, and that's really that kind of oh yeah, I know Ken from over here, go talk to him, the sort of word of mouth or client referral. When we do a great project and a client refers us, and so that's a great one. I would say what's funny is I found a lot of I hear a lot of agencies and that just live off of that third one, and that's really hard because it's not repeatable, scalable, and consistent. You guys have probably heard this, but I know Mark Cuban has this phrase. He says you don't have a business unless you have a consistent way of bringing people into your world, which I don't know if that's necessarily true. You don't have a business, but I do think there's something true about that. Because,
isn't that just another way of saying if you don't have customers, you don't have a business?
Yeah. Well, if you don't have a consistent way of getting customers,
if you don't have
you don't have a business.
New business development,
right?
Active new business development team.
But bottom line is you don't have customers.
You don't end up having customers, and then you'll go out of business. Of course, yeah. But that idea of an engine that's consistently bringing people and letting them know about you. That's something that I focus on a lot.
For you, Ken, is that engine automated, or is that engine partly human resources knocking on doors? What?
I think it can be. I think it can be both, in my opinion. I think as long as it's you're tapping into a pool that has some depth to it. That's at least how I look at it. And for us, it's things and we can get into it, but it's things we do a lot of content and brand building. That kind of, we do a lot of education. We create products not for the sake of sales, but we create products that do really great that are supposed to do a great job and know themselves, but then let people know about us. So those are some of for some people, it's, they speak constantly, and that's actually a great way. And I do some of that, and I'll probably do more of it. But I found that to be a great way. A few people have recommended that to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, that engine is that thing that you do that kind of lets more people know about you at scale. And building that, like I get if you can build that, that's part of the puzzle here.
Yeah. Oh, one of the greatest tools that I've had in my career for attracting new business is, and it sounds old school, but it works, is write a book and distribute that book and market the heck out of that book. And then all of a sudden you've got a built-in kind of lead mechanism that's perpetual long-term, because someone's going to pass that book on to somebody. It's going to show up when people search, when they go to Amazon. Some people want to read about whatever it is that pertains to your service business. And so I would say that's a huge one for those who can pull that off and choose to pull that off.
Yeah.
The world has become so much more flat now in the ability to write, publish, print, and distribute that, at a higher level, not just vanity publishing, but actually at a decent level. And if you are an agency, you've got the chops to create and make that book and that product look really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously it has to be really good content, but the chances of if you have an agency, you're probably really, really good at something. You have some expertise that you can do that with.
I've read Bob's book. It's really good.
It's really good.
It is. Go.
I know. I was around him when he was writing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was throwing fire left and right.
Oh boy.
No, but I think that's certainly something to consider. But I think one of the things that can be frustrating for an agency owner, I know for me, even helping other clients, is there is a underlying anxiety because we're constantly bombarded, specifically as agency owners, with media on the internet. You go to LinkedIn, you watch something on YouTube, and everybody's like, you can build your funnel to get new leads.
Yeah.
I'm a high ticket closer, and I can get these guys. I get you, up to 6 figures a month in 90 days.
And they have an ebook for you.
Yeah, and they have
just
an
want
ebook
you,
or
they
a
just want
course
your
or
email and phone number and address.
But and while we know, I think cognitively that's not real. It bombards us as agency owners,
Yeah.
and we're like, wow, what am I, some kind of loser that I can't get
Yeah.
10 new clients a month?
I always walk the fine line of trying to be very authentic in my outreach, but at the same time understand that people have very limited time, and sometimes it's a numbers game. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always trying to walk that fine line in my head of like, okay, how far do I want to push that numbers game where I'm, trying to hit up 100 people, leads that I think are maybe even cold leads, to, where do I go with that? And it's always a challenge for me because sometimes I feel like I get to the point where I'm just knocking on doors that I don't know, and trying to rustle up business. But I think there is something to that because for me, I've seen business come from different places, and I've seen it come from places I was really kind of surprised that, wow, we got a lead from that, or we got a client from that, So I always look back at the clients we get and try to really analyze where they first came from, where they first heard of us, and I ask those questions to them and try to get in their head to understand how they actually, got into our funnel, and if there was a funnel, and how they heard about us and what they thought about us and what they first thought about us versus what they thought about us after they started working with us, and trying to refine our messages, trying to refine exactly what our clients are, what initiates the initial interest in us.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. What are the tools? There's so many of them. Is there any one that you guys have in your toolbox that you say, without this, we would not have the level of business, or this really helps us in our new business generation?
The tool that I like the best is my mouth. It's saying
big. It's big.
It's saying, hey, do you know of anyone who needs a digital agency? Do you know of anyone? It's referrals. I think first of all, you got to be bold enough just to start asking for it. And it doesn't mean that you're desperate for business just because you're asking friends, asking business relationships. But somebody, a person may not have a need for our services, but there's a good chance that they know somebody who might. And, those referrals are, a first-person referral to us is gold, and it's gold to any business. Referrals are, a trusted referral can, beat out a HubSpot funnel probably any day. So for me, I've just being bold enough to ask sometimes is the first step.
Good.
That's funny. I totally agree. I mean, the highest quality lead sources are definitely the partner referrals, the client referrals, those kind of things. The problem is volume is lower there, but that kind of grows as you grow a partner network. I think maybe it's important to say that, at least in my opinion, and I think you guys would agree with this, like first you have to be really, really good at something, right? So like I assume that anyone listening to this has an agency that is specialized in a certain area because they're great at it, but not everyone is focused on being really, really great at something. They might be focused on being okay and then trying to sell that. I don't think that works. But if you can focus, number one, at being really, really great at something, being specialized, whether that, for us, that's e-commerce and literally growing the sales of e-commerce through, certain methods. Whatever that thing is for you, maybe you're an amazing designer or you're a great brand or whatever. The second thing is then you have to be able to put that to work. So apply it to clients and then that becomes something you can point back to. Like, here's the proof that I am really, really great at this because I did this thing. So that's the second thing. Then once you have that, then you have to use your mouth and tell the world about it, and so that might mean for some people it's a little uncomfortable because I'm guessing a lot of agency owners are doers. So they're probably really great at things and they're not really excited about business development. But you have to speak, get on stage, talk to people, or you have to put out marketing. You have to do those kind of things that let people know about the thing that you did. But I know for us, like, I kind of looked at that process and I said, I wanted to make sure that we were really, really great at what we did. And so we worked really hard at being super specialized and the best in that particular field. And then telling people about it was not easy either because it's like, the people that are like screaming from the rooftops are the people that may not be the best or may not have done that thing or may be kind of shady. And so you don't want to be associated with them. So you're like, I'm just going to let my work speak for itself. And that just doesn't work. Yeah. Obviously.
Sure. Yeah. And speaking of that, I would say one of the number one things that I did early on when I was starting out agency and all the way through was really create content about your work. So press releases about a project that you launched, or if you were hired as an agency of record, you kind of, you leak that out. And obviously you always check with your client to see at what level they're comfortable. But most of them, 9 times out of 10 would be, that's fine. And so I was talking to Brad the other day about this, that even now, 18, 19 years later, I can still search, certain things about myself, about the agency that I ran or whatever, and still have tons and tons of ranking content. And I think that's huge. Obviously we live in an age where everybody's Googling something on their phone. So let's talk a little bit about creating content and how to create that content and what types of content to pull people in, because the first thing they're going to do when they need an agency, there's a good chance that they're going to search that.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like if I could go back to and redo the last year and a half or 2 years, I think I would focus a little bit more attention on what you just mentioned about putting out those seeds. I think those things need to grow, and I think they need time to grow. Right. So if you do a press release, you're not always going to see an immediate response, but you could. It could get picked up, and depends on what the content is. But those are things, again, that have an evergreen life, and they stay out there. And the more you can plant those seeds and you start developing these little trees everywhere, people see those and they start to grow. and they drive traffic back to your site, and they last for a long time. And so I think that's a really good strategy that I need to implement a little bit more with our agency, for sure. But again, I think I see that as a little bit more of a long-term play versus an instant play of, getting business in the next 60 days. So it's a little bit of both. But certainly sometimes I feel like, I've always felt like some of the things that we do, is it really press-worthy? And I don't sometimes feel that, but I think it could be, and I'm just kind of a little too close to it, And I think any news can be good news. As long as it's good news, it can be good for your business, because there's somebody out there that might that might find it valuable.
Yeah, and I would say too is, instead of saying, is it newsworthy to the masses or to a group of people, I really see it not as, my end goal is not just to get it in the news, but really more to be juice for Google, to focus on that one person who might, in a month from now, and a year from now, and 2 years from now, that one person who's searching for that content. And you do enough of that, then you've got a lot of content out there for a lot of people that are searching for content.
One of the things that I'm trying to do is to do a lot more written articles, specifically in certain lanes, especially ones that we have clients within that lane that were more experts in certain industries. And then we publish those as well on LinkedIn and other syndications. So I think, we're going to put more energy into that and really see how that drives traffic and how it resonates. I know for sure, we posted it, as well as a couple articles I posted on the future of automotive and in-vehicle services, where we talk about, what type of services are going to be offered in your car when you're not driving your car for autonomous vehicles and things. And there's a lot of research on that, and a lot of consumer research already around that. And so I posted that on Medium, and Medium picked it up and posted it and promoted it because they thought it was a thoughtful, article about a specific industry that's interesting. And so that gave me a little bit of life to go, ooh, this is cool. Let's continue to do this kind of stuff, because we do have something to say. We do have expertise in certain industries. Sometimes I'm so close to it, I feel like, in running so fast and just growing a business, that I feel like I don't know if anybody else is going to find this valuable, but I got to take a risk. And
I'm curious, what effect did you get from that, or did you see just from Medium picking that up?
Well, my ego.
Yeah. Aside from that,
enlarged.
You take that to the bank.
I just had a lot more people seeing it, and then
did it get some good traffic?
It did.
It
drove some traffic to our site. It definitely got recognition. It got a lot more, obviously, people checking it out and reading it. And,
see, those kind of things are actually, those things are great, but they're probably things that you can't always bank on, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to be doing enough. But I'm always curious when those things happen, you hear a lot about the different, this gets picked up or whatever, but you never hear about what did that actually do.
Yeah.
Over years, what I've found, Ken, that's an interesting question that you have, because I'll run into people, or I talk to people, or people that I don't really know, that I'm more of an acquaintance. And out of the blue, I've had it said to me time and time again. They're like, "Hey, I really like your articles and your blogs and things that you're writing." And I'm like, "Oh, you read them?" He's like, "Yeah, I get them, and I see them pop up on this all the time, and it's great." And it just reminds you that you don't think anyone's reading it, and it might be just a handful of people, but people are. And so what it's doing, what Medium did for you, Brad, was it made you a thought leader in that space.
Yes.
And it might be only to 100 people, or it might be to 5, or how do you know? It might be ultimately to 10,000 people in the country.
Yeah, but it's still there.
Yeah, it's still there. And if you can continue to build and build and build and build and build over time, you've created something that people respect you. And when they're looking for services you offer, they're going to come to you.
Yeah. Well, another thing I noticed too within LinkedIn, when I posted it in LinkedIn, I had a lot of people within the automotive industry that I'm friends with, and I've been in the automotive industry for quite a few years. I grew up in Detroit, so I have hundreds and hundreds of friends on LinkedIn that are in that business, and there's a lot of people who liked it. A few people who commented on it within the industry itself. So again, starting to have a seat at the table, like. We don't produce an automotive product. We're a marketing agency, but having a seat at the table in that industry is really important for me. And the same thing with all of our other clients. It's being that thought leader of like, hey, we're not a tier one supplier. We're not an OE supplier in the automotive industry. We don't make widgets and parts, but we help market your products. And so I just need to do more and more of that.
Yeah. Good.
So I wonder if we could run. And I have a few questions, and I wonder if we could just run through a few different things, right? Like, in a way, like do you do things like Facebook ads? Do you,
Sure.
do you respond to RFPs? Like you guys?
Oh yeah.
Let's do the RFP one.
Oh,
like Brad, I know that's kind of like your world right now, and it's the reason I ask this is I think again, like that's not necessarily my world. We're in sort of a different area of the agency world. And I'm always curious because we get people asking us, and we generally don't do RFPs. But like when you're talking about agency of record, RFPs, like how do you get? Do you do those things? Is that a channel that you go after and you spend time on? Is it worth it?
We don't actively. We get RFPs, and sometimes when I get them, I feel kind of like I'm lucky, and then I'm unlucky.
Where do you get them from?
A lot of times it's word of mouth. Someone says, hey, or we'll be picked up. We have gone around and actually sent, actively worked with companies sending our information to their purchasing department to say, hey, if you ever have RFPs within this lane, we'd be interested in receiving
There's sites that focus
There are
on
sites that you can
RFPs.
you can get RFPs as well. We typically only respond to RFPs that are given to us, and not where we're like finding them and we're just 1,000 companies actively. So we like the ones where they handpicked us to participate. Sometimes we don't know how many other agencies are participating, but we feel like they want us as much, And so then we look at it and go, okay, how much time are we going to spend on this RFP? Because I've had RFPs that are really lengthy. When you're dealing with the government or you're dealing with any type of larger institution, you might have to be writing, you might have to put 2 or 3 people on it for 2 weeks straight writing an RFP because it's so lengthy. And is it really worth it? And so what I always look at it is the cost it's going to cost us to do it. What's the likelihood and what's the risk? So, and what's the total, if it's a $3-4 million 3-year contract, then that's, you might think about it if you think you have a good chance. But if it's a $15,000 project and you're going to work a week and a half on it and put a team on it, I don't know if that's going to be worth it. You have to figure that out yourself in your own agency.
That brings up a good point, and not to get off your questions because I think it goes with it, is there's the RFP model, which is at one end of the spectrum where you're actually spending money and betting on that you're going to beat the other 2 agencies, 3 agencies, 5 agencies, whatever it is out because you wrote a better RFP. You're offering your better quality and a better price than everyone else for what they're getting. But then the other side of the coin is, and I know I started to go to this toward the end of my agency experience, was you start charging for proposals. Mm-hmm. And so someone says, hey, we're getting a proposal and we really want you to submit. Well, that's fine. Here's what we'll do. Is we will create an RFP, and it's going to cost you. And the value to you is we'll be so detailed in that is if you end up not hiring us, you can use that to go execute yourself with your own team, and you've got a business plan and a strategy.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm wondering if companies. I mean, I've known companies that like they have an incumbent agency, and they're just trying to test out their pricing. They're just saying, okay, we're just going to put our agencies on the spot. I grew up in the old school agency world in Detroit, and it was notorious that our clients every year would put us on the spot, and we would have to really work hard to and they would every 3 years send out a new RFP for agency of record, and we were scrambling, and we'd always get the business back, right? But we knew they did it just to put us on point.
That's such a ridiculous charade.
I know, and then also just to see if what our pricing was.
Right.
And I felt sad for the other agencies who participated because they're most likely they didn't have a chance. They still wanted to work with us, but I haven't. Luckily, in our agency, I haven't played that game.
I think that brings up a really good point. I have this like very strong opinion. It's how we run our business, and it's not easy. But like my number one goal is financial independence. Mm-hmm. Like, and what I say from a business standpoint, that means like for us, it's like like several $1 million in the bank, or a certain amount of operating capital, like in the bank. at any given time. But the reason we do that is because, like, we don't want any one client or to be so big that they dictate every single thing we do, or that, you know, if it's towards the end of the contract, we're scrambling because for our life, you know, trying to figure that out. I've seen so many like big agencies, like what you're talking about, do that because they have one major client or several major clients, or, you know, staff is all attached to like a single client. And when that client goes, everyone gets fired. And, you know, it's just it's toxic. It's hard. It's just difficult. And so, like, I don't know, for me, I was always like, you know, we need to be independent. And there's probably something to take away from that. But like being independent of your clients and the business climate and a few other things, is sort of the number one goal, so that you can make healthy decisions.
How do you do that if let's say you're a 2-year-old agency or however, and, you know, you've got a couple of 2 or 3 clients that are keeping you and a couple of people going, and you want to grow, and all of a sudden you land, you know, a Procter and Gamble.
Yeah.
And it's your, you know, 90% of your billing.
So I don't, I'll have to verify this. Like, I think we pulled this from some of the rules of public companies that are traded on the stock market. But one of our rules is that no one client can be more than 10% of revenue. And
so what do you do though if you get a client?
Yeah. So we're never squishing people down. And so it's just when that happens,
just work real hard to get a bunch more.
It's a challenge to our team to put that back in balance. And so, like, to grow the revenue of the rest of the portfolio. And when that happens, because it does, at least in my experience, we're just really intentional about, you know, that revenue can't become what feeds everybody. And again, like, so we're.
So would you take 80% of that revenue and just put it in the bank every month? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not saying we don't spend 80% of it like on the client, but I also do believe in the idea of, you know, being paid based on value and expertise, good or bad, right? So if you spend 100 hours on something that's got $1 of value, then you get $1. But if you spend, you know, an hour on something that has $100,000 of value, then you get $100,000. And so obviously that you have to take the market and other things into account. But I do think that.
So what advice would you give to a small?
Trying to not make it about the just the strict resources is part of it.
What advice then would you give to a person listening to this that says, I am definitely not following that rule. I have a client that's paying, you know, 75% of what I do, and then I have 5 other clients that take up everything else. What advice would you give to that person?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, if it were me, I'd be trying to get financial independence as soon as possible. Because any given day, I guarantee you, anyone listening to this that is in that situation, is experiencing this right now. Your client gets up, is fickle one day, it throws off your entire weekday. I mean, you may be on vacation with your family, it doesn't matter, right? Like, that person runs your life. Or you're just scared that someday, like, I mean, just let's be honest, like, all things come to an end at some point, right? It's very cyclical, especially with client relationships. There's always going to be someone better, cheaper at some point. You know, businesses are still people with different personalities, and you can't control them. So,
you know, I've heard this story so many times, is that people start an agency because they are contractors or they freelancers, and then they actually get a big client, and that client is the biggest fish. You know, they might have a few smaller ones, but it's, you know, 50 to 90% of their business. And that's how they actually build a business, because now they have to hire people to support it. And then I think the challenge is like you said, quickly trying to add new clients. So then the total amount of their billings based on that one client go down quickly, so that they're not in a position, if they lose that client, they got to shut the doors or let people go or whatever else they have to do to, you know, to survive. But I think there's a lot of people probably right now that are listening that are in that boat. And so, you know, I think there's a little bit of give and take. I mean, Ken, if you have a client that comes in that is going to be 50% of your billings and you don't want to take them, you can just send them over to me.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, anytime you don't want financial independence, send them to us.
yeah.
No, that's great.
No, but it's, it's always a fine line because it is like, when you grow and when you're growing your business, for me as a business owner, I have one major, I guess it's a fear almost, is this client going to be around for 2 years? And I'm hiring all these new people based on the new business. And
there's no option on that one.
Yeah, I like freelancers and contractors to get over like growth humps, but I like to have the staff who's supporting business. But I'm afraid that if that business doesn't last, that I'm going to have to let people go. And that's just business, right? So you have to know that going into business, that there's going to be hard decisions. You're going to have to make these decisions that you really care for your employees and you care for these people. And you have to tell them, sorry, we just have to let you go or whatever. And that's always, not that I've really had much experience in my business. I've never really had to do that, but I'm always fearful of like, I'm so committed to my team and my people that it's always worrying me like, wow, as you grow and you build the staff and you build these resources, you've really got a lot on your shoulders. So I understand Ken's point of view of saying, hey, I can't have one client that if they leave today, I've got to go and make I got to have some hard conversations. And so,
Right.
I think it's kind of the both. It's like you have to look at your business and go, okay, there's an opportunity in front of me. Someone's willing to hire us, but it's going to be a big part of our business. Here are the risks. And you have to actually own that risk. And I've owned that risk before.
Be aware of it. Like, and I think to your point is a lot of people in situations are usually not aware of that. And just being aware of it, right? Like at least knowing, hey, this person is a big, right now pays all the bills. So, whether you're good or not at that, with that. But we should probably do another episode where we get into, finances and because this kind of goes into how do you do payment terms, and I know we all have like specific opinions on that, but like it all comes down to health because ultimately you want to be really great at what you do, and so you can and all this kind of stuff tends to get in the way, and you kind of want to eliminate that. I think at the end of the day. I would love to know about Bob. You can go. You can leave it.
Well,
I was just curious about Facebook, like other tactics.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I was going to take.
Do you do things like that?
Back to that. Yeah, those things have to evolve, and you have to stay up with them in the times. It's really like what worked on Facebook ads, 2 years ago doesn't work today necessarily, or the latest funnel that someone's pitching you may not work 6 months from now. So there's a challenge. Anytime you jump into the technology side, there's a learning curve. But I'm curious, I'm going to throw this back on you guys, and I'll tell you some of my own experiences. Do you guys use anything like Salesforce or HubSpot or anything like that that's actually a tool that aids you? And if you have, what kind of success have you had?
We used to not, and I know Brad's in the same. I don't know if you used to not, but we used to not use any one tool. We had a CRM for our sales. We have an email platform for our list and marketing, and we obviously do a lot of content. And so we had our website platform that we did all the content and other things. It was always we live in e-commerce, and so. In our world, like attribution is everything. Like we're running ads to bring in potential customers. We're retargeting them potentially. We're sending emails to customers that already bought and growing lifetime value. We're doing those kind of things. You can attribute everything, but it was so hard to attribute our own marketing because someone talks to someone. It's not the same type of thing. And so we had all these different systems not talking to each other. We've recently moved to HubSpot, and honestly, like I was avoiding it for years because of my perception of moving to HubSpot. But we still have our website platform on WordPress, but we love it. It's like, to me, I wish we would have done it 3 years ago. All our sale, when someone's reaching out to someone, they know, if they've read this article or if they've clicked this ad or if they've done X, Y, and Z, just right there easily, and it scores. I'll just end my little thing with this. Like, one of our goals is to bring in, large numbers of people into our world, which we do through different methods, which may not bring qualified people in. So of those large numbers of people, let's say there are 1 million people coming in, downloading something. Of those 1 million people, if there are 2 that are really, really good fits for us, I want our sales team to be able to know that and reach out to them. The only way you can do that is with really smart technology, automation, scoring, and those kind of things. And so that's what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, we just started using Hubspot too. This isn't an ad for Hubspot. I know there's other services.
Maybe we can get
similar.
some endorsements.
Maybe we could. Yeah. And there's some cool tools that I think that we're starting to use, and we'll have to have another on another podcast. Maybe I'll give you some more results on some of the stuff we've just recently implemented. But one of the things that I love about it is that I'm able to see the engagement of leads and contacts. So if you send an email to somebody, even a cold email to somebody, not an email blast, but just a personalized email, you can see if they've downloaded your fact sheet, if they've went to your website, what pages they've went to, and a lot of transparency. So you can see the ones that are actually a little bit more engaged and intrigued, and other ones that you thought might be, they don't care less. They open your email, you can see that, but they don't really care. But to me, it's always about trying to look at how do I get these people. Some of them are leads that I know, and other ones sometimes they're just cold leads of a friend or something. And so, how do I engage these people? And to me, it's a little bit of a numbers game. So to develop leads and to try to just get people to be aware. And I'm testing some different language actually in my emails just to see what may resonate a little bit more of, asking people to give us, if they know somebody that is looking for an agency, then they themselves might not be in the market for it right away. And then some of those leads might be longer term, when they do need an agency, they'll think about us and they have, they've already checked out our fact sheet. They've already gone to our website and then trying to capitalize on those who are interested. And then, but we haven't used HubSpot in a way that, we haven't done like a landing page with an ebook and all those things that, are popular these days.
I think there's all those. I think there's all those sort of like tactics that may seem like everyone's doing that kind of HubSpot and some of these tools are associated with. But at the end of the day, like if anyone takes anything away from this, at least from my experience, I wish someone would have told me use this, 3 years ago. And there are people probably out there right now trying to figure out like, how do I they might even have a CRM because they're not big enough, or they might just have a website and they might just be doing an email. But the value of having all those platforms talking to each other in one place. And I think, aside from HubSpot, there may be Active Campaign, which is like maybe an alternative. That's really effective.
One of the things that I really like is we, with HubSpot, again, another commercial for HubSpot, they have you can build, unique like chatbots and stuff. But the cool thing is that all those things, they have hooks to like Slack. So we use Slack. So I'm in Slack a lot all day long with my team, and so when somebody chats on our website, it actually comes up in Slack, and it's an automated Slack initially, but I could take over, so I can start chatting with the person on my website right through Slack, which is pretty cool, if they have more questions and things. And so I think a lot of these tools, there's other tools out there, they're becoming so sophisticated and they're so integrated with other third party software that we all use, and then if not, you can use Zapier and other types of third parties to connect these. So as far as the information that you can get out there about leads and what your funnels are doing is great, and we use those for clients. And sometimes I think our challenge is that we do stuff for clients that we literally don't do for ourselves, and I think that's the biggest challenge: is how do you dedicate time so that you are doing the things that will work and you do for your clients and have success. How do you do them for your own business, or how do you find the time to do them and get your team you almost need like a dedicated team internally that's focused on a lot of those things.
I think it's a mind shift that you get to the point you have to, and it's the whole, saying, what is it? The cobbler's kids have no shoes, is that you develop this mindset over time that you're servicing clients. They pay the bills. But I'd love to hear, Ken, because I think you do this really well, is you've got to develop a mindset that your own business is your number one client, and it sits right next to the rest of your paying clients.
Yeah.
And that's so hard. It's so hard because you're like, yeah, but if I do this, it's not paying me immediate money. But you've got to shift that mindset, and you've got to say, my staff, my team, myself, I'm going to work on my business, and it's the number one client that we have, and it will. It's not that it takes priority all the time over other clients, but it's got to be treated that way. Yes. And I think it's really more of a mindset that says, we've got to get this done. This needs to go up. We've planned this strategy out, and it needs to be put in the timeline, the project management tool, right next to your top paying client. And if you don't go that far, it won't be a priority for you.
Yeah. Not a plug, but I've written several articles on our website and did a video about this recently. On our YouTube channel. But in my opinion, it's counterintuitive a lot of times to think that you work on your own business. And sometimes you even feel like you don't want your clients to know that you work on your own business, or you don't want your clients to know that you have other clients. Now, if you think about that for more than 5 minutes, you're like, that is so short-sighted, both on your side and on their side, right? Like if your client really wants to be your only client, then, do they really want you around long term? Because that's not going to be healthy for your business. You're not going to be able to service them very long if that's the case. Does your client really not want you to be a healthy developing business where you have other things coming in? Because if that's the case, again, you're not a healthy business that's going to be around long term. And so, when you look at some of those maybe fears and you check them, I feel like I would bet that a lot of people are not doing things because of some of those fears. And then the other side is resourcing them. And I come from not agency world, just sort of business world. And so when I look at it, and this isn't my first company, I look at it and I'm like, well, we're a business. Our product is our service, and we have other products as well. But like any business needs to grow its business and grow its brand and do it just like we're doing for other people. And so that's a lot of times easier said than done, but we resource that specifically. We put those as projects. It doesn't mean they don't get bumped sometimes, because our projects do get bumped, but it literally comes down to before I could dedicate more of my time to that, I was actually in my calendar blocking out days or parts of days where it was just working on a specific thing for our business versus a client thing. Mm. And if you do it that way and you kind of calendar out your time, I believe you're going to figure out times where it's perfectly reasonable, for you to be away for 3 hours and everyone to be okay, and you're building your business. But I do think that's a huge part of it. Is kind of building your own brand.
Going back to the calendar thing, about 2 months ago, I sat down with my team and said, listen, any meetings you want with me, schedule them in the morning, because the afternoons from lunch on, it's all new business development, and a few other things, other types of business things that I need to do. And going back to the software, one of the things that I've done, and again, another plug for another company, is I instituted Calendly. Mm-hmm. There's other calendar systems where leads and potential clients can set up time, and I just do these coffee break. Hey, I want to buy you coffee. If they're local or if they're not, then you can make up specific types of meetings, and it's really nice where they can just go into your calendar and choose a time. And so I've dedicated those afternoons to have availability for people to actually, outside of the company, to set up appointments with me and talk with me. Even just kind of sit down and almost think of it like I'm going to come sit down for an hour and I just want to talk about your business, if I can help pour into it at some level, or if you have any questions. So it's almost like you're giving back to them at some level to say, I'm not here to sell you specifically. I'm just here to maybe more help you.
Yeah. Getting back to that, I think the biggest, I'm going to circle back around to your other methods and platforms question that I've used, Ken, but to what Brad's saying is, I think the number one thing that I would advise people, if I could tell them one thing to grow, get new business, is spend more time with your current existing clients.
Yes.
It's like go visit them, take them to lunch, and educate them. Be constantly educating them. One of the things that I've seen to be really effective is to create case studies about other clients doing kind of different things. So for instance, if you're engaged with a client and you've built their e-commerce site and you're driving traffic and managing some of their digital ad spend, you wake up one day and you find out that they went and hired some other agency to do their videos. And you're like, oh, we could have done that a lot, 10 times better.
We just had that.
And your client's like, well, we didn't know that. Well, you weren't educating them. You weren't showing them, hey, marketing director Bob, check out this awesome video we did for this other client. Check out this blog we wrote. And he's like, oh, we didn't know that you did that kind of stuff. My partner down the hall needs that.
Yeah, it's funny because like you said earlier, Ken, sometimes, maybe you don't want your clients to know you have other clients. They do know it, but you don't want to sometimes I tell my employees like, hey, let's treat our customer, they think they're the only client, right? We never talk about another client. We never talk about, well, we can't get that done because we have another project from another client in that slot or something. But I think the idea is, I like your idea, Bob, of like, hey, sending them like an email or a newsletter that says, hey, here's what we're doing for our other clients. And it may be something that they actually don't even know that we do, or they don't know that we're experts in it. Because I think when I talk about new business, a lot of our new business comes down to a really specific project that a new customer wants. And we actually do that, and that's how we get them in the door. But then we do that really well, and then we start adding all these other services on top of it because we see there's so much greater need, and they're like, wow, we didn't know you did that. Even if it's like, well, it's on our website, and we pitched kind of that we did it. I'm like, yeah, but we just...
They don't.
They just kind of don't see it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's I think that's a really good point because when it comes down to doing other things, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but like in my opinion, like clients don't hire agencies because they're good at things. Here's why. They may think they do, but like truthfully, like they can hire an internal staff, like they have internal staff that does things. I believe that clients, they may not realize this, but really the value of an agency is in the vast experience quickly over many different businesses and brands doing what they do. So they're really, really good, but they're also really, really good at applying it across industries, across brands. And so that collective knowledge is extremely valuable to the brand that is only looking at their brand and only has been, and everyone in their team is only looking at their brand all day long, every day. That's valuable. And that, I believe, is really why I believe clients don't even know it, but I do think that's the real value of an experienced agency is being able to say, hey, this is working over here. And that works really well with us. Obviously, we do e-commerce and we're working with really influential brands. And so everyone's trying to figure out how to grow. And we can say, hey, we don't give away any secrets or anything like that. But it's like, hey, we know that this works this way because we've done it over here and over here. And so when it comes to you guys, you might want to think about this. You might want to think of doing it this way. And I think that you couldn't do that if you only had one client, right? It's just, you just sort of it's kind of short-sighted. So it's been intentional for me to try and flip that perspective, I think.
That's good.
I don't know if it's been successful.
Yeah. Well, leading off your other question about tools is, over the years I've used Facebook ads and Instagram and Google, and those have all had some of them hit some home runs and some reasonable success. I would say the number one tool that I have used and used to this day for the past 3 or 4 years, it's been around longer, but I think it's gotten better, is LinkedIn.
Definitely.
Where else could you go in the world and find 99.9% of anyone that you want to talk to in the business world, that your potential leads, and know everywhere they've been and know a little bit about them, see their bio, and have the ability to message every single one of them. There's nothing else that exists. And so using that tool effectively, I've had so many people, because they've evolved it now to a point where it is a true social network. It's got posts and feeds and videos, and it looks like Facebook in a lot of ways. So being able to use that and post your content there, tag, use every method that they use there, because once you build up a pretty good following, then when you start using their publishing tools, those people see those, and it's just another. Actually, it's like an email list.
Yeah, and it's also a platform that isn't as used as much for ad buying, like Facebook and things. And so, I think as far as the algorithms are concerned, from what we've seen, is that it's more people see it because not very many people are posting on it or doing ads or even content. So, it's amazing how many people don't do content on LinkedIn. And once you, like you said, build enough following, it's a great way to.
Maybe we need to do another episode about all about paid ads on social on some of these social networks and how you actually generate interest through these things. Because I think breaking that apart, for me, I hear a lot. So top level, right? LinkedIn. I always say to our team, I'm like, the percent of the population that is an ideal client for us, and that's probably true of every single agency listening to this, the percent of the total population that's an ideal client is probably, if you're B2B, is probably extremely small. And so, finding those pockets of people on Facebook and some of these consumer-based social networks can be really difficult. Yeah. LinkedIn has a much higher percentage of those people, so it would make sense to do a lot there. I do a lot there. However, I hear a lot of, this is an area that we're actively trying to get better at. We hear a lot of people talking about how good it is, and we have done a lot there, and we've run ads and all those kind of things. But just to be completely transparent and honest, I've not found a ton of success there yet. I'm not saying that's because that's not true, just because we haven't found it. So I wonder if we can break apart what that success looks like.
Definitely.
Facebook is sort of another one. I don't know if you guys do Facebook ads. We do a lot of Facebook ads. That's kind of, in our world, because we sell, again, like consumer products for our clients, and so we know that well. But we do them a lot for ourselves. Again, when it comes to Facebook, it's it's a lot less direct response when you're talking about an agency. Like, you're not going to get, like the general Facebook user is probably not your client, and so why would you be doing those ads? And how are you? And even when you're targeting really well. Again, that's probably not your client, the ideal client. And so we've thought a lot about our strategy on Facebook, which is, for us, more brand building. Yeah. And we do consumer products, so we have info products and things like that are for people that are not our clients. Like if you're just a startup, or I say that as a bad thing. If you're a startup, or if you are aspiring to own a business, an e-commerce business, then we create content for you. And that's what you'll find on Facebook, and those are typically not our clients. But the theory is that word will spread a bit, and there's this brand building aspect that I believe. I even tell our clients, like, we take 20% of ad budget and put it towards brand building efforts, because it's less attributable. But if you just do the direct response stuff on the other side, it's just too transactional. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of my quick on that.
That's good. That's good. Well, guys, it's coming up on an hour. This has been really good and helpful. I don't think we've even cracked the code yet on what's the solution. Yeah. And I think
hopefully we've given a few secrets away.
Can we go around and tell the audience what you feel your number one thing to generate new business is, like that from your experience, just from your experience? I mean, we might all say the same thing, but because you said, I've done those things, but I haven't seen a direct correlation to a sale or something. But
I would say the number one thing for me, gosh, there's so many because they build on each other, but I would say is build good relationships, and that's primarily in person, but also online. If you can build relationships with people in the sense of reaching out to them regularly, emailing them regularly, and going and meeting them face-to-face regularly, it's just building long-term, deep relationships with people, because they're going to be your biggest referrers and advocates. Even if some of them never hire you, they have a world of influence themselves. So just just stay in front of people, take people to lunch, email them regularly, stay in contact. If you haven't heard from someone in a year, go find them on LinkedIn and just say, hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Hope you're good. Hope your family's good. Let's get coffee sometime. Just a simple message like that to keep yourself and your agency top of mind with these people. Yep.
I would say for us, I would say the same thing, especially when somebody that you've really worked hard for, that you've earned their trust. You know, people move a lot in the industries, and they move from different businesses, and they get new jobs and stuff. And so I find that if you serve somebody really well, a client, and they move, the chances that they're going to bring you along to their new company or have you integrate you into their new company is pretty high. And so that's where that's where I've seen the most success of getting new business.
I totally agree with you guys, and so I'll go with mine on a different one that I've seen work really well. Well, two, I talk about in my mind, if you know the I forget what it's called, the performance grid, urgent, not important, that kind of thing. Like the bottom right is called is the important, not urgent stuff. That's the money box, as a friend of mine calls it. The money box, because those are the things that really will make you successful, but you just can't, there's nothing, they're not going to come and knock on your door every day. So you have to be intentional. For us in that category, it's 100%, not content for content's sake. That's such an overused term, but like truly finding your voice, what your passion is, what you're really good at, and creating content through that, not for business generation, but for the sake of telling the world how to do what you do or your perspective on things. Like that is the number one long-term thing. And we do a lot of that, video and writing and all that kind of stuff. But from like a tactical, like immediate business kind of thing, our partner network is the number one driver for sure. Yeah. Like where we get, where it's somewhat consistent and we're growing that consistency, but also the quality is consistently high. We get a lot of inbound leads. Well, I don't know what a lot is to everybody, but like a relatively large number of inbound leads, but the quality is extremely low for the majority of those. And that's just the case, right? And so, but the partner network, those peers that you do work with and that you share business with, I think that's been really effective for us.
Awesome. Well, guys, this has been fun. Thank you for your time this morning or today or whenever you're listening to this podcast. It can be midnight for all we care. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.